The message says, "Are we okay?" 3 words on a screen. Nothing dramatic, nothing poetic, nothing that should be able to pull the body backward through time. But the reply has not come yet, and the silence begins to change shape. 1 minute becomes evidence. 5 minutes becomes a theory. 20 minutes becomes a small private collapse. The phone is face up on the table, and the whole nervous system seems to be waiting for permission to breathe. The adult mind tries to stay reasonable. They are probably busy. They may be driving. They may have fallen asleep. They may not even understand the weight that is gathered around this tiny blue bubble. But the body does not care about reasonable possibilities. The body has already started telling an older story. They are leaving. That is the strange cruelty of attachment wounds. The present may be small, but the reaction is ancient. A delayed message can feel like abandonment. A quiet partner can feel like danger. A normal disagreement can feel like the beginning of being unloved. A person can be standing in an ordinary room, in an ordinary year, in an adult body, while some younger system inside them reacts as if survival has been placed on trial. This is not because they are weak. It is not because they are dramatic. It is not because they need too much love. Sometimes what looks like neediness is an old alarm. Sometimes what looks like coldness is an old method of disappearing before anyone can leave. Sometimes what looks like chaos in love is a nervous system trying to run towards safety and away from danger at the same time. Attachment wounds do not begin as ideas. They begin before language. Before a child can explain loneliness, betrayal, safety, or fear, the body is already learning the grammar of relationship. A cry becomes a question. A face becomes an answer. Arms either arrive or they do not. A voice either softens the room or sharpens it. Hunger, cold, pain, noise, and fear either bring someone closer, or they reveal that the child must endure too much alone. The first years of life do not usually become clear memories. Most people cannot tell the story of being 6 months old. They cannot describe the room, the smell of the blanket, the expression on the caregiver's face, the exact number of times someone came or did not come. But the absence of memory does not mean the absence of learning. The body keeps records in patterns, not sentences. It learns whether distress brings comfort. It learns whether need is safe. It learns whether closeness calms or threatens. It learns whether love stays. John Bowlby understood attachment as a biological system, not a sentimental decoration. A baby is not attached because babies are poetic. A baby is attached because a baby cannot survive alone. The attachment system pulls the child toward the caregiver when the world becomes frightening, painful, cold, strange, or overwhelming. Proximity is protection. To be close to the caregiver is to increase the chance of staying alive. This means the first relationship is not only emotional, it is regulatory. The caregiver is not merely someone the child likes. The caregiver is part of the child's survival machinery. When the infant cannot calm itself, the other body helps calm it. When the infant cannot organize fear, the other face helps organize it. When the infant cannot return from distress, the other nervous system becomes the bridge back. This is why early love is so powerful. It is not experienced as a concept. It is experienced as temperature, pressure, rhythm, voice, smell, and timing. The world becomes bearable through repeated bodily events. Someone comes, someone holds, someone looks back, someone repairs. someone stays long enough for the storm to pass. A secure beginning does not require perfect parents. That myth harms everyone. No caregiver responds correctly every time. No one is endlessly attuned. No one rescues every cry before it rises. Security is not perfection. It is a rhythm of rupture and repair stable enough for the child's body to learn that distress can be survived inside relationship. The child cries and someone usually comes. The caregiver leaves and usually returns. Fear rises and usually meets a face that does not make it worse. Over time, the nervous system begins to form a conclusion deeper than thought. When I need, I am not alone. That conclusion becomes a hidden foundation. It allows the child to explore because there is somewhere to return. It allows emotion to move because emotion does not mean exile. It allows closeness to feel less like a trap and distance to feel less like death. The child does not think, I have secure attachment. The child simply begins to live as if connection can hold. But when care is inconsistent, absent, intrusive, frightening, cold, chaotic, or emotionally unavailable, the body learns different lessons. It adapts. That word matters. Attachment wounds are not failures of character. They are strategies. The child's nervous system studies the caregiver and asks the only question that matters. How do I keep connection close enough to survive? If the caregiver sometimes comes and sometimes disappears, the child may learn to increase the signal. Cry louder, cling harder, watch more carefully, protest more intensely. Do not relax too soon. Do not trust calm. Stay activated because love is unstable and must be kept in sight. This is the seed of anxious attachment. If the caregiver consistently rejects need, ignores distress, shames dependence, or responds with discomfort, the child may learn to decrease the signal. Do not cry too much. Do not reach too openly. Do not show the wound. Turn away before wanting becomes visible. Appear fine, become self-contained. This is the seed of avoidant attachment. If the caregiver is both the source of comfort and the source of fear, the child faces an impossible problem. The body wants to run toward the person and away from the person at once. The safe place is also dangerous. The alarm has no direction. This is the seed of disorganized attachment. These are not dating trends. They are survival logics. Mary Ainsworth made these patterns visible in one of the most famous observations in developmental psychology, the strange situation. The scene is simple enough to seem almost harmless. A small child enters an unfamiliar room with the caregiver. There are toys. A stranger appears. The caregiver leaves. The child is left with the stranger. Then the caregiver returns. Only a few minutes pass, but in those minutes, an entire map of safety can become visible. The securely attached child may become upset when the caregiver leaves, but when the caregiver returns, the child can be comforted. Distress meets repair. The caregiver's presence works. The child can return to play because the body has received the message that the bond is still there. The anxious, resistant child may become intensely distressed and may not settle easily when the caregiver returns. There can be clinging, anger, protest, pushing away, reaching, and resisting comfort at the same time. The caregiver returns, but the body does not trust the return enough to soften. It is as if the child has learned that closeness must be fought for and cannot be taken for granted. The avoidant child may appear less distressed when the caregiver leaves and may avoid or ignore the caregiver upon return. From the outside, this can look like independence. But calm behavior does not always mean calm biology. Sometimes the child has learned that showing distress does not help, so the signal is suppressed. The body still needs, but need has become dangerous to display. Later, Mary Main and Judith Solomon identified disorganized patterns where the child's behavior seems conflicted, frozen, fearful, or without a coherent strategy. The child may approach and then collapse, move toward the caregiver with the head turned away, freeze, rock, show fear in the presence of the person who should reduce fear. This is attachment without an organized solution. The room is small, the implications are not. A child in the strange situation is not performing a personality test. The child is showing a nervous system under relational stress. What happens when safety leaves? What happens when safety returns? Whether the body can use another person to calm. Whether closeness restores order, intensifies alarm, or creates confusion. This is the blueprint people carry forward, often without knowing it, not as a fixed destiny, not as an unchangeable curse, but as an expectation. Bowlby called this an eternal working model. The child builds a model of self and other from repeated experiences. Am I worth responding to? Are others available? Does need bring care or rejection? Is closeness safe? Do people come back? Does love require performance? Does anger end the bond? Does silence mean abandonment? The model becomes so familiar that it stops feeling like a model. It feels like reality. This is why adult relationships can feel irrational from the outside and inevitable from the inside. The anxious person may know intellectually that a delayed text does not equal abandonment, but the body does not experience the delay as neutral. The avoidant person may know intellectually that a partner's need is not imprisonment, but the body may experience closeness as invasion. The disorganized person may crave tenderness, then panic when it arrives, because tenderness resembles both rescue and danger. The past does not repeat because people want pain. It repeats because the nervous system recognizes what it learned. Harry Harlow's studies with rhesus monkeys exposed another brutal truth about attachment. The infant does not need only food. It needs contact comfort. In those famous experiments, baby monkeys often clung to a soft cloth surrogate even when nourishment came from a wire surrogate. The finding is easy to state and difficult to fully absorb. The young body does not simply seek calories. It seeks warmth, softness, holding, and a place to press itself against fear. The ethics of those studies are painful to consider now. They should not be romanticized, but their psychological force remains. A body can be fed and still be starved of comfort. Survival is not only the continuation of metabolism, it is the presence of something soft enough to organize terror. This matters because many attachment wounds are hidden behind adequate care. A child may have had food, school, clothing, a clean room, and still lacked emotional holding. The outside may have looked normal. The body may have learned panic. No one hit them. No one disappeared for years. But no one knew how to be with their fear. No one softened when they cried. No one stayed emotionally present when the child became inconveniently alive. That kind of deprivation is harder to name. There are no bruises, only strategies. Alan Shore's work on early attachment and affect regulation helps explain why this enters the body so deeply. Infants are not born with mature emotional regulation. They borrow regulation from another nervous system. A caregiver's face, voice, touch, timing, and emotional availability help the infant move from overwhelm back toward tolerance. The baby is not simply comforted. The baby is being biologically organized. Over thousands of small repetitions, the child learns what to do with emotion, not through lectures, through co-regulation. The caregiver lends calm until the child can begin to build the capacity internally. A soft face teaches the nervous system that fear can come down. A reliable return teaches that absence can be survived. A repaired misattunement teaches that rupture is not the same as ending. But if the caregiver is frightening, blank, intrusive, unpredictable, ashamed of emotion, or absent, the child must adapt without enough help. The emotion may become too much, or the child may learn to shut it down before anyone sees it, or the child may swing between desperate expression and collapse. Later, this can look like moodiness, coldness, neediness, control, numbness, jealousy, withdrawal, or rage. But under the adult behavior is often a much older question. Will anyone help me come back from this? This is where attachment wounds enter love. Adult romance activates the attachment system with almost embarrassing precision. The beloved becomes someone whose presence regulates, whose absence destabilizes, whose voice changes the body, whose attention can make the world feel organized, and whose distance can make old terror rise. Love is not just an idea, it is a nervous system event. That is why people become younger in relationships, not visibly, not always, but internally. A conflict can make a 30-year-old feel 5. A silence can make a competent adult feel helpless. A partner's coldness can open a room that existed before language. The person may speak in adult sentences, but the body is responding from an earlier age. This is why so many fights are not about the surface issue. The argument is about dishes, but the body hears neglect. The delay is about work, but the body hears abandonment. The request for space is about overwhelm, but the body hears rejection. The need for reassurance is about one moment, but the body hears the old question again. When I call, do you come? Anxious attachment turns love into vigilance. The anxious person does not simply want attention, they want evidence. Evidence that the bond still exists. Evidence that silence has not become disappearance. Evidence that mood changes are not the first step toward leaving. They may scan tone, timing, punctuation, facial expression, shifts in affection, changes in routine. Love becomes a room full of smoke alarms. This is exhausting for both people. The anxious person may ask for reassurance, receive it, feel calm for a moment, then feel the alarm return. The reassurance did not fail because they are selfish. It failed because reassurance often reaches the mind faster than the body. The body learned instability through repetition, and one sentence cannot always undo what years taught. The anxious person may protest, accuse, cling, over-explain, send too much, read too much, apologize too quickly, panic too easily, or try to become indispensable. Beneath all of it is usually not a desire to control for its own sake. It is the terror that if connection is not actively held, it will vanish. The wound says, love leaves unless you grip it. Avoidant attachment turns love into a threat to autonomy. The avoidant person may want connection deeply, but closeness can activate danger. Need feels like a trap. Emotional intensity feels like engulfment. being dependent on feels like losing air. A partner asking for reassurance may sound, to the avoidant nervous system, like a demand to surrender the self. So the avoidant person creates distance. They intellectualize, they minimize, they delay replies, they focus on work, they retreat into screens, tasks, silence, privacy, irritation, or sudden certainty that the relationship is too much. From the outside, this can look cruel. Sometimes it becomes cruel, but its root is often an old adaptation. The child learned that needing did not work, so the adult becomes skilled at not needing. But the need does not disappear. It goes underground. It may emerge as attraction to unavailable people, relief when partners stop asking, discomfort after intimacy, or a strange grief that appears only when the relationship is safely distant. Avoidant attachment does not mean the person has no attachment system. It means the system learned to hide itself from danger. The wound says, love costs too much of you. Disorganized attachment is often the most painful because the system has no stable strategy. The person may pursue and flee, idealize and distrust, ask for closeness and then attack it, crave safety and feel terror when safety arrives. They may experience love as both home and threat. The body moves toward the hand and prepares for the hand to become harmful. In adult relationships, this can look like chaos, sudden withdrawal after intimacy, rage after tenderness, panic when someone is kind, attraction to danger because calm feels unfamiliar, testing the bond until it breaks, then using the break as proof that no bond survives. This is not romance. It is a nervous system trying to solve an impossible equation. The wound says, the place I need may also destroy me. None of these patterns make a person bad, but they do have consequences. Attachment wounds can make people hurt the very relationships they want. The anxious person may exhaust the bond by demanding constant proof. The avoidant person may starve the bond by refusing ordinary dependence. The disorganized person may destabilize the bond by treating safety like a trap and danger like home. This is the tragedy. The strategy that once protected the child can later injure the adult's chances of being loved. The body repeats what worked before, even when the environment has changed. This is why people often choose familiar pain. They do not consciously want suffering, but the nervous system may confuse familiarity with safety. A chaotic person may feel exciting because childhood taught the body to recognize love through unpredictability. A distant person may feel magnetic because the old system understands pursuit. A stable person may feel boring because safety does not create the same chemical alarm. A kind person may feel suspicious because kindness was not the original language of love. The adult says, I have chemistry with them. The body says, I know this danger. That is one of the darkest layers of attachment. The wound does not only make people afraid of bad love, it can make good love feel wrong. Secure love may feel too quiet, too available, too honest, too steady. It may lack the spikes of anxiety the body mistakes for passion. It may not produce the familiar high of earning care from someone inconsistent. So the person may sabotage what begins to heal them. They may start a fight when things become peaceful. They may feel disgust when someone needs them. They may lose attraction when someone becomes reliable. They may chase the person who is leaving and ignore the person who stays. They may call stability boring because their body has not yet learned that peace is not emptiness. This is not stupidity. It is conditioning. A nervous system trained in uncertainty does not instantly relax in safety. Sometimes safety itself becomes threatening because it removes the old job. If there is no one to chase, no one to decode, no one to win back, no one to prove yourself to, then the body has to feel what the chase was covering. The grief, the emptiness, the fear that without earning love, you do not know who you are. Attachment wounds are not only about relationships with others, they become relationships with the self. If care was inconsistent, the self may feel fundamentally uncertain. Am I too much? Am I not enough? What did I do wrong? How do I keep them? If care was rejecting, the self may feel ashamed of need. Why do I want? Why can't I handle this alone? Why does closeness make me weak? If care was frightening, the self may feel divided. I want comfort. I fear comfort. I need someone. I cannot trust anyone. These are not just thoughts. They're body positions. The anxious body leans forward. The avoidant body leans back. The disorganized body moves in two directions at once. The secure body can move toward and away without feeling that either movement destroys the bond. That is what security really is. Not never fearing, not never needing, not never fighting. Security is the body's ability to remain in relationship without losing itself or expecting immediate abandonment. Many adults are not insecure because they never found the right person. They are insecure because the first template for rightness was built too early to remember and too deeply to argue with. This does not mean parents should be turned into villains. Attachment is not a courtroom where every adult problem is placed at the feet of caregivers. Families are shaped by poverty, trauma, illness, culture, stress, war, migration, depression, addiction, work, isolation, and the attachment wounds of previous generations. Many caregivers gave what they had. Many also failed in ways that marked the body. Both can be true. A child does not need the caregiver to be evil in order to be wounded. Sometimes the caregiver was loving, but emotionally absent. Sometimes they were exhausted. Sometimes they were terrified of emotion because no one had held theirs. Sometimes they provided materially, but could not attune. Sometimes they were present in the house and absent in the nervous system. The child's body did not judge them, it adapted to them. That adaptation can become invisible until love activates it. A person may feel mature at work, calm with friends, capable in crisis, and then become unrecognizable in romance. This is because romantic attachment places the old system under pressure. The stakes become bodily again. Will you stay? Will you answer? Will you still want me when I am difficult? Will you disappear if I need too much? Will you trap me if I come close? Will you punish me if I trust you? The adult relationship becomes a stage where early biology speaks in modern language. It says, "Why did you not text back?" It means, "Did I stop existing for you?" It says, "I need space." It means, closeness feels like danger. It says, "Why are you being so cold?" It means, "I cannot regulate this alone." It says, "I do not care." It means, "I cannot survive caring openly." This is why attachment language can be helpful, but also dangerous. Helpful because it gives names to patterns that once felt like madness. Dangerous because names can become identities. People say, "I am anxious," "I am avoidant," "I am disorganized," as if the style were a permanent personality, a label to defend, a script to obey. But attachment styles are not prisons. They are maps of adaptation. A map can be studied. A map can be revised. But it cannot be revised by shame. Shame usually strengthens the wound. The anxious person ashamed of needing becomes more desperate and less direct. The avoidant person ashamed of distance becomes more hidden and more defensive. The disorganized person ashamed of chaos becomes more convinced they are unlovable. Shame repeats the original injury by making the self unsafe to bring into relationship. Change begins with a different kind of observation. Not what is wrong with me, but what did my body learn to expect? What does silence mean to me? What does need mean to me? What does closeness cost? What happens inside me when someone is kind? What happens when someone leaves the room? What do I do when I start to matter to someone? These questions do not cure instantly. They create a pause. And sometimes a pause is the first evidence that the old map is not the only map. The hardest part is that secure attachment in adulthood often feels boring before it feels safe. It may not create the violent relief of being chosen by someone inconsistent. It may not create the intensity of pursuing someone distant. It may not create the drama of rupture and reunion. It may feel ordinary, and ordinary may feel suspicious to a body trained by alarm. But ordinary is where repair often lives. A person replies when they can. They explain when they are overwhelmed. They leave and return. They disagree without disappearing. They apologize without collapse. They hear need without contempt. They set boundaries without punishment. None of this looks like a movie. It looks like repetition. And repetition is exactly what built the wound. So repetition is also what may soften it. Not one perfect conversation. Not one confession. Not one partner who finally loves you so well that you never hurt again. The body does not learn safety from speeches. It learns from patterned experience. A hand that does not turn into a weapon. A silence that is later explained. A conflict that does not destroy the relationship. A need that does not make the other person vanish. A boundary that does not mean exile. This is why healing attachment is slow. The mind may understand in a week what the body learned over years. Insight is faster than regulation. Language arrives before trust. You can know your pattern and still feel the panic. You can name your avoidant shutdown and still go numb. You can understand disorganization and still feel the pull towards someone dangerous. Understanding is not the same as rewiring, but it can begin the process. To heal an attachment wound is not to become someone who never needs reassurance, never fears abandonment, never wants distance, never gets triggered, never repeats old patterns. That fantasy is just another form of perfection. Healing is more modest and more difficult. It means noticing the old alarm while there is still time to choose. It means saying, "This feels like abandonment, but I do not yet know that it is." It means saying, "Closeness feels dangerous, but danger may not be present." It means saying, "My body is in the past, but my feet are here." The body needs proof that here is different. Sometimes that proof comes through therapy, sometimes through a stable relationship, sometimes through friendship, sometimes through parenting one's own child differently, sometimes through grief, sometimes through the painful recognition that the person you keep chasing is not love, but repetition. Sometimes through the even more painful recognition that the person who feels boring may be the first person not reenacting your wound. But there is no clean ending. Some wounds remain sensitive. Some bodies will always hear certain silences more loudly. Some people will always need more communication than others. Some will always need space to feel safe. Some will always have to work carefully with the moment tenderness becomes frightening. Healing does not erase history. It changes the degree to which history controls the present. Return to the unanswered message. Are we okay? The phone is still there. The reply still has not come. In the present, maybe the other person is simply busy. Maybe they are careless. Maybe they are avoidant. Maybe there is a real problem. Adult discernment still matters. Attachment theory is not an excuse to ignore reality. Sometimes a delayed response is nothing. Sometimes it is part of a pattern. Sometimes the body is overreacting. Sometimes the body is accurately reading danger. The work is not to silence the body. The work is to listen without instantly obeying. The adult can place a hand on the table. Feel the room. Notice the old speed of the heart. Notice the story forming. Notice the younger question underneath the adult one. Not just, are we okay? But, will you still be there when I need you? Not just, why have you not replied? But, has love disappeared again? Not just, are you leaving? But, was I ever safe? This is the place where time folds. A person in the present becomes the carrier of an old emotional weather. A partner becomes a parent. A phone becomes a doorway. A silence becomes a nursery, a bedroom, a hallway, a closed face, a cry that did not bring anyone soon enough. The adult may know better, but the body remembers without words. Perhaps that is the most disturbing part of attachment wounds. They do not always appear as memories. They appear as certainties. This person will leave. Need is humiliating. Closeness is dangerous. I must earn love. I must not want too much. I must disappear before I am rejected. I must test them before they hurt me. I must hold on before they vanish. The wound speaks in the language of truth, but sometimes it is only the past speaking fluently. Growing up does not mean pretending the first map was never drawn. It means noticing when you are using it to navigate a country you are no longer in. It means understanding that your body may be trying to protect you from yesterday with strategies that injure today. It means holding compassion for the child who learned them and responsibility for the adult who still uses them. That balance is hard. Too much compassion without responsibility becomes repetition. Too much responsibility without compassion becomes shame. A person trying to heal attachment has to carry both. This happened for a reason, and it still affects others. This was not my fault, and it is now mine to understand. My body learned this honestly, and my body may be wrong about the present. There is no simple comfort in that, but there is dignity, because the wound is not proof that someone is unlovable. It is proof that the need for love had to survive in a difficult form. Clinging was once intelligent. Withdrawal was once intelligent. Freezing was once intelligent. Chaos was once intelligent. The body did not choose the most beautiful strategy. It chose the available one. Now the question is whether it can learn another, maybe slowly, maybe through many ruptures and repairs, maybe through people who do not punish need, maybe through learning to leave without abandoning and stay without collapsing, maybe through discovering that a calm relationship is not necessarily empty, maybe through realizing that love does not have to feel like the original wound to be real. The phone finally lights up. Maybe the reply is ordinary. Sorry, I fell asleep. Yes, we are okay. Or maybe the reply is disappointing. Maybe it opens a real conversation. Maybe it proves something was wrong. The point is not that every fear is false. The point is that the size of the fear may contain more history than evidence. The adult reads the message. The body takes longer to catch up. That gap is where the work lives, because perhaps your first 3 years did not become the blueprint for every relationship, in the sense that they doomed you to repeat one story forever. Perhaps they became the first map your body reached for whenever love became dangerous, intimate, silent, uncertain, or real. And perhaps the attachment wound does not make you love the wrong people as much as it makes your body mistake love for whatever once helped it survive.